Hey, Steve Stanek here, the Dusty Keratometer. Today, I've got 5 suggestions for how to take better pictures. Now, I'm not talking about ophthalmic photography. I'm talking about creative photography. Almost everybody's a photographer. If you got a cell phone, you're a photographer. I have to apologize. If I look to my left, it's because that's where my computer screen is. Somebody commented on one of my previous videos. I was looking down too much while I was looking at my notes. Sorry. Everybody's a critic. A lot of optometrists are photographers, and on one level, optometrists focus light all day, so that's a big part of photography right there. I've been at it for about 50 years. My dad gave me my first camera when I was about 12 or so. It's changed a lot, of course, mostly for the better. Let me get right to it. My first suggestion is get closer. Second one is to shoot people. Third is not to be afraid to get under the pizza oven. Fourth is expensive gear does not a photographer make. And the last one is never complain to your subjects. Yeah, I went to undergrad in the University of Maryland, Munich, which was just incredible. I mean, some of the city scenes, to just take the S-Bahn downtown and shoot the Frauenkirche here at night. Beautiful, beautiful stuff. What a great place to go to school and to grow up. I was studying zoology, and one of my professors, Carol Sajak, was the professor that taught human anatomy and physiology. Well, her husband, Robert Sajak, was a tenor, and he was trying to break into opera. He was trying to become the next Pavarotti, and so he taught guitar at night. So I studied guitar with him, classical guitar. I never got very good at the guitar, unfortunately. But what was interesting to me, an epiphany I had, was we would talk about stuff, and I got to say, the most profound things that I learned from artists like Bob Sajak. You would think, since human anatomy and physiology was the basis of my optometry, which was my career, that would be more profound. But there's something to be said for the arts. Now, I am not a professional photographer. I'm what you call an enthusiast. But occasionally, I get things right. I've taken some classes in Germany and learned a lot from my mistakes, and I've made a lot of mistakes, taken a heck of a lot of bad pictures. When I was in undergrad at the University of Maryland, Munich, my roommate, Alexander George, was actually studying to be a professional photographer. And actually, he was already working for a newspaper and stuff. We had the same camera, Minolta. But the thing about Alex, he had just an uncanny ability to hit the shutter release at just the right time to get great pictures. I mean, it was incredible. And I think part of it was natural ability. I think part of it also was being very familiar with the settings and how to set it right, because you had to set almost everything on this camera. Nowadays, you just kind of press the button if you're on full auto. Here's a picture I took at the library, Barbie. Sometimes your subject is just so photogenic, that you almost can't take a bad picture. I mean, here she is with that smile. We've got the books in the background are out of focus, and what that does, it draws your attention to the subject, which is pretty cool. So the first suggestion, get closer. This is the mistake I see more people make than anything else. Here's a picture my cruise buddy took in front of Salisbury Cathedral. Let me say this. In a previous video, I called this guy a schmuck, which was probably a little over the top. So I'd like to formally apologize for that. Having said that, I'm going to slam him again now. So I was telling him he needed to get closer, but this is as close as I could get him to get. We jumped off the Queen Mary 2, jumped in a rental car, Joe Drive on the left side of the road to Salisbury Cathedral, and here we are. Here's another picture up in Denmark that Joe took of me in front of some castle. And again, I was yelling at Joe to get closer, and he wouldn't do it. So what I ended up doing, I actually cropped the photograph electronically, and he insists that his picture is better than mine. And I pressed him. I said, okay, why is your photo better? And he said, because it contains more information. So I took these 2 photographs and I showed them to 7 different people. I didn't tell them why I wanted them to pick, but I asked them which picture is better. It was unanimous. All 7 people, including one professional photographer, preferred my picture. You really want to get up close and personal. Even this picture, there's some problems with, because it's a little confusing. You've got these other 2 statues in the background, and you're not really sure where you're supposed to look. You've got the lion statue next to me. The right way to take a picture is to blur out the background, and that way it simplifies the photograph and shows what's important. When I was a kid, I shot a lot of slides, and it used to be a big deal. We would get the slides back, and my family, we would project them, and it was good because we would critique each other and stuff. And my mother said something very interesting. She said, "I only want to see pictures with people in them." And she cared about her family and her friends and things like that. She didn't care so much about buildings and mountains and things like that, which is kind of interesting when you think about it. If you're going to have emotion, you kind of need people in your pictures. So that's what I mean when I say shoot people. Here's an interesting example of a rather impersonal building with the person with the red umbrella. Kind of makes the picture, if you ask me. Here's a picture I took of my wife, and I took this last month at Herculaneum. You have Mount Vesuvius in the background. The best way to do this is have the person close to you and put whatever it is you want in the background. And to me, this works a lot better than having somebody go way near a fountain, and then you've got to explain, see that dot near the fountain, that's my wife or my husband or whatever. This just works better for me. My family's always done it that way. Yeah, on one cruise I was with my friend, my cruise companion, and we got off a tour bus somewhere, and he said to me, "Why aren't you taking any pictures?" And I told him, I said, all this stuff's online. If you're just going to take a picture of the Eiffel Tower or whatever, there are better pictures online. Why do I have to take a picture of some fountain? Now, if your girlfriend or wife is with you, that's different, or your friends, but it just doesn't make sense to me. I'd rather walk around and look at the stuff, take it all in. Yeah, another thing, I'm constantly learning. During Operation Desert Storm, I was walking around London with this technician friend of mine, and we came out, this street photographer approached us, and I learned something from him. What he would do, it was very interesting, he would focus on people's feet, and then when he had all the settings right, he would bring the camera up and take the picture of the people. And when you think about it, that's kind of brilliant, because when you first put the camera on people, they tend to smile. And then if the operator has to fiddle around with the settings to finalize it, oftentimes that smile will fade. So this was that photographer's way of dealing with it. The person's feet is pretty much the same distance away as their face. So he would focus in on their feet, and I guess the aperture he knew that was going to be okay, and he'd bring it up and take the photo. It was brilliant. Don't be afraid to get under the pizza oven. This is interesting. There's a photographer online, professional photographer, Jared Polin. He has all kinds of stuff going, a weekly broadcast and podcast, and also a video cast. And he will do what's called 5-minute portraits. He did one out of a place called Pizzeria Bettia in Philadelphia, and it's a fascinating story. For one thing, he of course talked to the proprietor, Joe Bettia, as he was taking the photos. And one story that came out was this particular pizzeria does not have a phone. And the reason is, when they opened, They were supposed to install the phone the week after. I guess they couldn't get to him right away. So he opened his pizzeria, and what they did was, I think they make like 40 pizzas, and then they sell them. And the first week they were doing fine. So he decided to cancel the order to have a telephone installed in his pizzeria, which just blows my mind. I literally know 100 optometrists who would kill to have a practice that started the first week to be financially successful. I mean, it's so bizarre. But granted, a pizzeria and an optometric practice are two different things. But on the other hand, 50% of restaurants fail. So that's quite a tribute to their pizza. Must be wonderful. I mean, they have a lot of glowing reviews. But anyway, the proprietor, Joe Bedia, he was the subject of this 5-minute portrait. And one thing that really impressed me was that Jared Polin, in the course of shooting his photos, at one point he got underneath now the oven was off, it wasn't running, but he got underneath the oven to use the legs of the oven as a framing device to shoot this photo of Joe Bedia, doing his work. Which, what boggles my mind about that is, I would never think to get under the pizza oven. I mean, if you taught me, said, take pictures of this place, that in a million years never would have occurred to me to climb underneath the pizza oven. But if you approach photography with that in mind, I mean, you can put the camera on a tripod or a monopod and hold it up very high and shoot a picture that way with either the timer or a remote. We walk around, our eyes are roughly 5 feet off of the ground. But the thing to remind yourself is, that's not necessarily the best height to take a picture. Sometimes it's obviously much more dramatic to put the camera down on the floor or way up high or at a different angle. And that's one of the beauties of photography. You can get vantage points from just about anywhere. Of course, now the big thing is drones. People are using drones like crazy. We'll talk more about that later. But that's an interesting thought. And it's kind of it makes you think when you walk around and you're taking pictures, what unusual angles can I get? Another thing I do, much like in that Bedia pizza, Jared Polin took the photos and had them made into a nice book and gave it to the Bedia pizza guy. And it's kind of interesting. I do the same thing with my cruises. On each cruise, I'll take the best pictures and just make a little book out of it. It's kind of nice. I went to school in Philadelphia, optometry school, and that's one thing I do really miss about Philadelphia is the restaurants. There are a lot of really good. We used to go to Harvey's Pizza or call out to Harvey's Pizza. Pizzeria Bedia, you can't do that. You got to go in person. And I guess people line up sometimes 3 hours before they open. Awesome. Must be a great pizza. If I'm ever there, I'll give it a try. Here's an example in Rome where I borrowed that idea of using a framing element. I think it does add a little visual interest to the shot. Now, Picasso said, "Good artists copy, great artists steal." My interpretation of that is not that they literally steal. I mean, you wouldn't want to take somebody else's work and put your name on it, but steal their idea, their inspiration, and make it your own, make it better. People do that all the time. Happens all the time. The artist makes things simple. A good artist. You need to simplify. There's a legend about Ernest Hemingway being challenged to write a short story in 6 words, and he supposedly won a bet by writing or saying, "For sale, baby shoes, never worn." Now, this is controversial because much earlier than that, in 1906, when Hemingway was 7 years old, a newspaper classified classified section had something called Terse Tales of the Town, and they published an item that said, "For sale, baby carriage, never been used, apply at this office." And a similar version appeared in 1910, and then there was another one even in 1917. In 1974, my parents were going to Speyer, the town of Speyer in Germany, and they said, "You want to come? You want to come with us?" And I said, I almost didn't go. I didn't really feel like going out, but at the last minute, I said, "Okay, I'll go." I took my camera, this one, and I shot this picture. This is what it started out. It looked like this, and then I did. At the time, it was very popular to do something called solarization. Basically, you would put the film in you put the print in the developer, and then you would. What I did, just to keep it simple, I just turned the room lights on. We were working under a safe light, which is kind of an orange-yellow light. And if you re-expose the paper, the light areas turn dark, and you also get that silvery effect. And I used to use this Agfa paper. It was just perfect for that. What's funny is I was just thinking the other day how solarizations were popular in the 70s and how it's not done today. And then I get literally this month's issue of Air Force magazine, and right on the front cover they have a solarization of Pearl Harbor. And that's a great use for solarization, because obviously Pearl Harbor was a bizarre, out of the blue occurrence, and it gives it sort of a supernatural effect. But I got to thinking, I wonder what would happen if I splashed fixer on it. So what I did, I printed the picture, I put it in the developer, and then I stopped the development with some water, and then I took it over to the fixer. And what I did, I literally held the print by this corner, and I splashed fixer on the paper, and I smeared fixer on the building part because I didn't want to change that part. Then I took it back to the developer and dropped it back into the developer. And then of course the sky turned black, and the branches gave that silvery effect. And it's kind of a neat you get the basically you almost make your own clouds, so to speak. So that's a good example of, I almost didn't go with my parents, and I'm glad I did. So it just goes to show you got to go out anyway. When you don't feel like going out with your camera or your smartphone, we could take a lot of inspiration from the art world. In fact, Norman Rockwell used to take pictures of people. Here are two good examples. He would shoot a picture first, and then he would actually do the illustration from the pictures. And then I know what some people are saying, well, why don't you just take the picture? But obviously he could change the background. He could control a lot more. And he was an illustrator. That's what he did. But like if you look at the one with the cop, he made the cop even bigger. He made the boy smaller than he really was, and he made the cop even a little bigger to make it even more imposing. But good examples of drawing your attention by focus. And if you look at this is an original I have. This is a Maya. And one of the things I like about it is just so realistic. And the other thing I like is the eyes. She has the tear prism there. She has the Perkinse-Sampson images there. I got to be honest with you. When I went to optometry school, I was actually worried that by studying the eyes inside and out, that the eyes would lose their mystery. I got to tell you, after half a century, a quarter century of practice, the eyes are still mysterious. I can't figure everything out about people and stuff. But what was interesting, when I took this print, took this pastel. It's actually a pastel, and she uses some other media. She probably uses some paints and stuff. I don't really know. But I took it to get it appraised, and the appraiser said something that I thought was fascinating. He said that if you look at the hands are not done that well. Now, it is true, hands are very difficult to paint. But I didn't say anything to him, but I think as good as Maya is at drawing faces, if she wanted to make the hands crystal clear, she could. I think she purposely left the hands that way because it draws your attention to the eyes. If you make the hands too sharp, too detailed, where do you look? I mean, do you look at the way? And I think this was done on purpose. You don't need the hands sharp. And when you think about it, when you look right at somebody's face, their periphery is somewhat blurry. So anyway, this is another example. This is the Venetians by Sir Samuel Luke Fildes. I love this picture. And if you look at it, there's several things going on here. You've got right in the foreground, you've got these two women, and one is rinsing out a shawl or something in the water, and she's talking to her friend. It looks like her sister, whatever. And then in the background, you have another family walking by. Well, you have the matriarch and the kids, and they've obviously been shopping. And this one daughter has the fiasco of Chianti for the evening. The wife is holding flowers with the baby. The other daughter is carrying the goods, and leading this whole procession. You have the family dog, and you can see he's high-stepping. He's looking happy. He's anticipating the leftovers that he's going to get from this meal. And when you think about it, back then, this is 1885, I think. This would be done every day. The meal, you didn't have refrigeration as much. And you look at the mom's face, and you can just read on it. Times are tough, but they're getting by. They're doing okay. And this one daughter with the wine, you can see she's looking at the two older girls, and she's definitely looking envious. She'd like to while away the time maybe and be older probably. And the other daughter, you can see with her hand up to her face, that's worry. She's worried about something. And what's interesting to me, if you look at the guys, they're not very well defined. And there's some guys playing cards on the right. There's a guy looking out the window on the right. There's one guy working on the left, moving melons or something. But that's on purpose, because that's not what Sir Samuel Luke Fildes felt was important. You can tell. And then another big thing is the baby. I mean, you look at how poorly defined the baby is. It's almost as if he put a Post-it note that saying that, okay, the baby's here. That's not important to him. If Mary Cassatt painted this picture, I think the baby would be heavily detailed. Look at the woman in front. Look at her sock. He spent a lot more time painting her foot and her sock than he did on that baby. It looks like he punched out that baby in 2 minutes. So anyway, it's just kind of interesting. Very complicated picture. You got a lot going on here. You got a lot of emotion. You've got recreation on the part of these guys. You've got pride. You've got worry. You've got envy. You've got friendship. You've got anticipation. It's complex, but it's good. It just kind of works. Now here's another painting. This one's called Al Fresco, and much simpler. Sir Samuel Luke Fildes, he was actually British, but they say he often used his family members for his models. So that might be the case here. So here we just have 5 women, and you ask yourself, what's going on here? My personal story, I think, and I'm sticking to it. I think this lady doing the hair is the mom, and the 2 daughters in the back at the picnic table are her daughters, and you can see they're good friends. They get along. They're playing with jewelry or something like that. I think the girl with the red hair and the girl with the black hair are friends. I think the girl with the black hair is the sister of the mother in the painting. And I think the 2 girls in front are talking about men. And the mother, you can see she's kind of smiling. And I think she's smiling for 2 reasons. One, she's a little bit envious of this girl's red hair that she's combing out. And the other thing she's saying to herself is, these girls are naive. So this was done 4 years later. Al Fresco, 1889, Sir Samuel Luke Fildes. The point is, if you take these principles and look for them when you take pictures, you can find stuff. Let me give you an example. Here's a picture I took in 1974. Now, the only thing I need to tell you is these people were there together. And the thing you ask yourself is, well, the thing I ask myself is, what's going on here? You've got one guy in the water. You've got a guy and a girl. So right off the bat, you've got the men are from Mars, women are from Venus situation going. You've got the guy in the water, and he looks like he's in distress. We can only see part of their faces. We can't really make them out. The girl's very well dressed. She's got 2 purses. Why does she have 2 purses? Is she a Monet? You know, and Monet was popularized by the movie Clueless. Basically, a woman or a guy who looks fine from a distance, but when you get up close, she's all messed up. You know, is she the problem? Is she a drug dealer? And you know, he's in distress, and she's not giving him what he needs. Interesting to think about, to speculate, to come up with your explanation of what's happening here. Fascinating. You've got this demarcation right up the middle, the edge of the fountain, which separates the, it almost looks like 2 photos that have been slid together, but they're not. This is one photograph. And, you know, what's going on? You could come up with 100 different explanations. I mean, did he just propose to her and she threw the ring in the water and he can't find the ring? You know, are they arguing? What's the deal? Now, she's looking to her left, and there's something going on to the left, and we're not privy to that. We don't know what it is. She's kind of got the David pose going, if you will. Her weight's on her right foot. She's interacting with somebody to the left. Now, is the guy her mentally retarded brother, and somebody yelling at them to get out of the fountain, and she's defending her brother? You know, you could give this picture, you'd show this picture to a high school or a college class, and you could get 100 different explanations. And what's interesting is the explanation actually might tell you more about the person writing the explanation than reality, the reality of the situation. But it's a very provocative picture. This was at the Heidelberg Castle. Sherlock Holmes might say, these are deep waters. My cruise buddy would say, no, the water's only about 18 inches deep. If anybody really wants to know what was going on here, put a comment down in the comment section, and I'll either do a video or give an explanation if they want to know. Okay, expensive gear does not a great photographer make. This is so important. I think this is probably less of an issue now because smartphones, everybody's got a smartphone, and you know, that's all you need. I'm not going to tell you that you need to go out and spend $2,000 on one of these Nikons. I'll never forget, I was at the PX in Heidelberg, and a young guy went up to the counter. He had a friend with him, and he said, I want to buy a lens. And he told him what Canon or whatever he was into. And so the purchaser said, you know, what do you got for me? And so the guy behind the counter said, well, you know, we've got this 35 millimeter wide angle lens. And the purchaser said, I've got that one. And he said, okay, well, we got this 200 millimeter telephoto lens. And the purchaser said, I've got that one. And I realized it was an epiphany. What this guy was doing, he was collecting lenses. Now, he may have been a good photographer. I kind of doubt it, because usually when you buy a lens, you have a specific need in mind. Like, let's say you want to take pictures of flowers. You need a macro. I'll bet you he has people come over to his apartment, and he probably said, look at all these lenses I've got, you know, because say you're going on a safari and you can't get so close to the lions or whatever, you need a telephoto. Usually you buy a lens with a specific need in mind. You don't just go to the camera shop and buy a bunch of lenses. It's kind of ridiculous. It's kind of like in this time, in the 70s, with this camera, you would take the picture and then you would advance the film by turning this lever. And they came out with something called motor drives, which was an attachment that would advance the film for you. So basically, you could do this. Now, if you're, say, photographing a football game, a motor drive could be a very valuable tool because you could get the moment the quarterback releases the ball or gets hit or whatever. But for an average amateur photographer, there's hardly ever a need for a motor drive. I mean, but back in the day, I remember I read an article, and it was titled "Things Called Motor Drives." And the whole tone at this time was like this was a tool that everybody needed. The film companies, Kodak, Agfa, Fuji, they loved motor drives because people would expose a lot more film that way. So I wonder how much money was behind articles like that from the film industry. Another time I read an article where people used to write in and ask questions, and a guy actually wrote in and he said he was an amateur photographer. He didn't yet have a motor drive, but he said, I'm definitely going to buy a motor drive. And then he went on to ask the magazine, what exactly do motor drives do? So, it just struck me as bizarre. I mean, here a guy doesn't really know what something does, but he's made up his mind that he's definitely going to buy one. Talk about putting the cart before the horse. It's ridiculous. Now you can do a lot more creative things with the fancy camera, like these time-lapse photographies, if you want to see rolling clouds and stuff like that. But I don't know how often you want to do stuff like that anyway. So you could give my iPhone S to professionals like Jared Polin and Joel Sartori, and they could give me their Nikon D5s or whatever, and those guys would shoot circles around me. It wouldn't even be close. It's not the equipment, it's the operator, and it's the creative eye of the photographer. Now, I understand about pride of ownership and stuff like that. And if collecting lenses is something that somebody wants to do, knock yourself out. But I think that's a little over the top. Don't ever complain to your subjects. What I mean, let's say you're going to shoot a wedding. You want to make sure you have a checklist, you got all your gear, it works, tested, have extra batteries and all that stuff. Let's say, for example, you've got two cameras. Your main camera is a D7200, and your backup camera is a D5500. You take them both. You go and you're going to shoot this wedding. And let's say, for example, you forget your batteries for the 7200. The last thing you want to do is tell the bride that your main camera is not working. You don't want to. Because if you do that, here's what's going to happen. She's going to tell the bridesmaids the photographer's having camera difficulties, and that's going to introduce worry. And the logic of it, people fall into a trap. They think, well, if something isn't working quite right, I'll make an excuse for it, and then when the pictures come out decent, they'll be happier. It's not going to work that way. So whatever you do, I learned this in the military. I used to hang out with this sergeant. We spent a lot of time together. We'd talk about stuff. And sometimes the battalion commander would come by. And the battalion commander would say, how's it going? And the sergeant would always say the exact same three words every time. He would say, just fine, sir. And I felt like asking him later, didn't you just tell me that your dog ran away and your daughter is dating a biker? But it's interesting because the commander doesn't want to hear that your knee is hurting or that you're cold or whatever. The commander wants to know If he has to tell you to take that hill or whatever, or in our case, if he's got 8 guys that need gas mask inserts and they need to be refracted, he wants to hear you say yes sir and take care of it and move on. So the same thing, if you're shooting a wedding, you want the bride and groom to know you've got their back, you've got it all under control. Just because you're an amateur doesn't mean you can't be professional. And professionals have been sued for blowing weddings, so it's a kind of a responsibility. You know, it's supposed to be a once in a lifetime thing, even though nowadays, unfortunately, half of marriages end in divorce. Still, it's a big deal. Do what you can do. MacGyver it. If you can borrow a battery from somebody else, great. If you can come up with some other solution, do it. But it's important. Have a list, go over it, double check it, test all your equipment, bring extra batteries. That's the reason I've got these 3 cameras, because if I'm going to interview somebody like Stan Yamani, if one camera is out of focus or something like that, I've got things backed up. The reason I've got the 3 because I can have one on the talent, the person I'm interviewing, one on me, and then another camera on both of us, and that way I can switch between the 3. And like I said, if something doesn't work out in one, I've got another option. Multiple microphones, backups to everything. You gotta approach this with a level of professionalism, especially if you're going to shoot a wedding or something like that. There's a photographer on YouTube, the Angry Photographer, he's called, and he said he likes he went with a black camera bag because it matches his heart. I think I resemble that remark. I think it matches my soul more than anything else. But I like a picture that's mainly dark. You saw this one. 2 of my favorite painters are Renoir and Rembrandt. And Renoir said, "I've been 40 years discovering that the queen of all colors was black." I had a good classmate of mine, the gal that asked me to go to the prison for her. She said she didn't like black because it reminds her too much of funerals. I guess I've been pretty lucky. I haven't had to go to too many funerals, maybe, but maybe I'm like Stu in The Hangover. I got a demon in me or something. But I like a picture that's mainly dark. So maybe that's why I called it the dusty keratometer. Most keratometers are black. I've got a little bit of gothic in me, I guess. I don't know. I do wear black pants, almost exclusively. Kind of a joke with my friends and stuff. I think there's a frustrated artist within all of us. I like that quote from the movie Arthur, where he says, "Not everyone who drinks is a poet. Some of us drink because we are not poets." And I'll put links to the bottom to Jared Poland's Frono's Photo website and some other information that might be valuable. Anyway, I hope this has been helpful. It's been fun for me to put together. Been a heck of a journey. Get your stuff out and take some pictures.